Hello everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello, welcome to my April wrap up. My beautiful friends, it was quite a great reading month, like ratings wise and book wise, but for like numbers wise, worst month of the year so far, which is totally fine. I feel like in April I kind of hit a weird rut in my reading. I just wasn't in the mood. I just was not in the mood to read, and I was more in the mood to write and create, so that's what I did. Today we're gonna go over the 7 books that I ended up reading in April, including one that I read twice. So 7 books, one that I read twice, so I read 8 books in April. And the lowest rated one, 3.5 stars. I feel like a god saying that. The past few months have been wild for ratings. They've been all over the place, especially as you can see here in my journal with the range and the stretch. But all those yellows, those are my April books, and they stay very tightly in the top range, which we love. So I ended up reading 4 fantasies, 2 sci-fis, and 1 thriller, which was very exciting. And I also realized as I was looking and grabbing all the books for this, the majority of them were library books. I think 3 of them weren't, which is, I guess, almost half weren't library books, but I was just devoted to my library books this month, which is great. Anyways, the first book that I ended up reading was Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. I actually went into this because, one, I had it on my Transrates Readathon TBR, which happened at the end of March, and I just didn't have time to read all the books on my TBR, so I decided to read this one in March, and I decided to give it a try. I think I read it right at the beginning of March because I didn't have high hopes, since I've read a River Solomon previously and DNF'd it halfway through because I just didn't jive with River Solomon as a writer. This actually really worked for me. I picked it up physically from the library, read about a chapter physically, and I really didn't enjoy it, but then I picked it up audibly and it killed the game. I could not put it down. I listened to it for 5 hours straight at work one day. I just couldn't stop listening to this one. This is set on a spaceship that is bound for the mystical promised land. It is set kind of in a spaceship that kind of emulates like the antebellum South. So like there's levels of poorness, kind of literally and physically levels of poorness and racism and all that kind of stuff. We follow Aster, who is a neurodivergent girl who is the assistant to a surgeon on the ship, who the surgeon is of higher class than she is, because he passes as white. She does not, so she's of the lower class and she's neurodivergent. It kind of, gosh, there's so much that goes on in this. It's a weird, like, rebellion almost. I wrote it down in here in my bullet journal as like, she learns there may be a way to improve her lot in life if she's willing to sow the seeds of civil war. So it is a fascinating read. And a lot of people on the internet have been saying that it was very, very dark and hard to get through. I found it totally fine to get through. I didn't find it very dark. Yeah, there's a lot of content and trigger warnings, but it was a lot less dark than I was anticipating. So go in with your research done, check those triggers and content warnings. But I really liked this book a lot more than I anticipated. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I enjoyed our characters, I enjoyed what was going on, and the intrigue as to like where our main character's best friend was going, like what's really going on with the few people who have passed away, like it's just, I don't know. I found it interesting. I can't even really explain what happens in this plot, but I do highly recommend this. And then I read my favorite book of the month, and the book that I read twice, which is Empire of Exiles by Erin M. Evans. I have fully dived headfirst into this and have fallen so deeply in love with this series. So this is a fantasy mystery novel that follows a main character, sort of. There's a big cast of characters in here. It's kind of hard to say which one is the main character, but Quill is the guy who's mentioned on the back of the book, so we'll say he's the main character for this one. He is a scribe, an apprentice scribe who comes to the Imperial Archives at the beginning of this book with a request to pull a couple artifacts for a very, very high up and very drama-filled family, the Karatzi family. And all of this request causes a bit of a stir in the archives. They're like, weird that all these artifacts that are tied to the revolution led by one of the Karatzis about 23 years ago are being asked for now by the Karatzi family. What's happening there? And then Quill goes back to where he's staying with his buddy, and walks in on his buddy having murdered somebody and attacked a bunch of other people, and then his buddy commits suicide after saying some of the most cryptic shit ever. And Quill goes, "That wasn't my buddy, something is wrong here." So it becomes this mystery unraveling of figuring out what's going on with Quill. It's teaming up with the archive people and discovering more about them. I love them so much. Every single character in this book I'm so obsessed with. Amadea and Yini and Tanuk and every single one of them. I love this book so fucking much. I read it first with the audiobook and physically in hand, just absorbing every second of it. I could not put it down. The mystery was so fascinating, and it is so tightly plotted and world built, and the characters and everything is knitted together so perfectly. I could not stop reading this. The moment I picked it up, I was in. And it deals with some of the most fascinating world building. So this is set in Samilla, which is a place in this world about 100 years after a war broke out. Something happened that we don't really know the details of, because this is told from the perspective of people who are behind the Salt Wall, which is a wall that was erected to like keep out the changelings, because changelings are kind of like fae beings a little bit, because they're affected by salt and iron. So like this salt wall was erected with a bunch of like saints and like this whole bunch of, you know, world building. And any of the refugees from the entire rest of the world all evacuated to Samilla, which is just this little dot here on the end, just this little bit here. So this is now made up of the 10 protectorates. Is it 10? I don't know how many it is. 12, 11, something like that. It's the authorities are trying to make it work with authorities from every single one of these places that have come to all live in Samilla, with the Samillan government as well. And so it's so fascinating. I could talk about this book forever. And this book not only put me on the path of then wanting to read everything that Erin M. Evans has ever written ever, but it also put me onto the podcast of writing about dragons and shit, because I went and looked up Erin M. Evans online and found her connected to B. Dave Walters, who is a huge name in the D&D community. Found their podcast that they have together, the writing one, writing about dragons and shit, with Trevor Bettis. And I have not been able to stop listening to that. I have consumed over 70 episodes of that since I read this like 3 weeks ago. And then when I read this for the first time, I was obsessed with it, and I immediately wanted to reread it, but I was like, I can't just turn around and reread it right away. So then I read the next book, and then I picked this back up 6 days later. The way that this just made my brain expand and explode, and then listening to the Writing About Dragons and Shit podcast, my brain did not want to stop working on Sage's story, which is my next trilogy that I'm currently writing. It follows a character not from A Little Luck, but from a second story, the first book that I wrote. It follows a character from there, Sage. She goes on her own adventures, and the first book in that is going to be a fantasy mystery. So I went back into this with the purpose of kind of just flipping through it to see if I could find the plot points and like analyze how Erin M. Evans was doing all these plot points. I just ended up rereading it at that point in 2 sittings, physically without the audiobook. I was reading it and tabbing and annotating and just loving on this book top to bottom to see how Erin M. Evans was doing it, how she did it, how she did her beautifulness. Reading it so quickly after I read it the first time, 6 days, I could see every little detail that Erin M. Evans was doing. It was just fabulous. So 5 stars if you couldn't tell. And I do have the second one, which I'm going to be reading next. It is literally the next book I'm picking up because it just came out 2 days ago for me. So I'm picking up the sequel immediately, which is Relics of Ruin. I need everybody to read this so desperately. If you are in the mood for a very beautifully plotted high fantasy novel that has so many different things happening, so many different internal mysteries and external mysteries, some of the most fascinating characters, and it's just so beautifully plotted, read this. Read it. Read it. Between my 2 reads of Empire of Exiles, I ended up also reading The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, which I ended up giving 3.5 stars. I thought this was quite good. I had so much fun with it. I listened to it in 1 sitting. It was so much fun. I don't know why. I don't know what I was expecting going into it. I had heard that it wasn't like the most like fascinating or well-written book, but it just has something in it that makes people be unable to put it down. It's just a really good read for everybody kind of a thing. Like it appeals to the masses, you know? And so I definitely agree. I thought it was so much fun. Sure, it wasn't like the best book ever, which is why I gave it 3.5 stars, but I had a lot of fun reading this, and I will be probably picking up the sequel because it was just genuinely a great time. So this follows Millie, who's down on her luck. She's trying to find out a job at the beginning of this. She's living out of her car, all that kind of stuff. She ends up getting a job as a housemaid for this rich family, and shit starts to happen as she's working for this rich family. That's what I'm gonna leave it at, because I went into this totally bamboozled by like the second part of the book, so I liked it a lot. I had a lot of fun with this. I really did. And it was a really good like palate cleanser between my 2 reads and my Pie Face Files. Then I ended up picking up The Blighted Stars by Megan O'Keefe, which is one of the sci-fi books that I've been so excited for. I'm so glad that I finally got to it because this was fabulous. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed this one. So this is also really tricky to explain, so bear with me. All right, so in this world, we have this big overarching like merit, M-E-R-I-T kind of conglomeration, I want to say, that is controlled by a different bunch of families. And each of the families kind of have their own stronghold in different resources or different factions. So, for example, the tech people have a claim on like the reprinting software, which reprints people, which is really cool. So everyone has like neural pathways kind of into them. So it like saves their memories and their thoughts and their processes and their personality. It saves who they are. It basically saves their soul into these neural pathways. And if you die, or if you want to be uploaded somewhere else, you can get into a machine that like uploads everything to that exact moment and then reprints you in a different body somewhere else. Or if you die, you could lose the last chunk of time since the last time you updated your neural pathways, wherever they're being held, right? Fascinating technology. But so we follow the son of the Mercator family, and the Mercator family have a monopoly over the mining in this universe. And so they've been going around mining different star systems, different planets and different star systems for this very specific mineral. They are doing it in a way that they claim is very safe, and that is like totally okay, because they mine with this like fungus that goes directly just for this mineral. It doesn't touch anything else on this world. But they have been accused by the conservators, who are a group of people who are kind of like rebel leaders, that their mining processes have left these star systems dead. Whatever they're doing is leaving it dead, because it, like, after they leave, this new fungus kind of comes in called the Shroud, and it kills everything on the planet. So at the beginning of this, Tarquin, our main character, Tarquin Mercator, is determined as shit to prove these claims wrong, because he's like an eco guy. He has a science degree. He's a science guy. I don't remember what his thing is, but he has so much knowledge and so much experience with all of this kind of stuff, especially with fungus and like geological stuff. Geological, that's not the word. Environmental things, that he is convinced that his family is not doing this, what the conservators are blaming them for, and he wants to get proof. So him and his dad are on this trek to what is called Sixth Cradle, which is the next star system that they're going to go mine, and he is going to go there and get all of the information that he possibly can to prove that his family is good. On the way there, they get attacked. His father is killed, which is fine because he could just be reprinted, but his father is killed, and in that moment, he's also reprinting an EX, which, hell if I remember what that's actually called. I don't remember. An exemplar, that's what they're called. So exemplar Lockhart is supposed to be being printed at this moment for the purpose of dealing with everyone on the ship, as the rich boys get to escape this attack, right? But because Tarquin's father dies, Tarquin takes over and tells EX Lockhart, who he thinks is EX Lockhart, who is just reprinted, what's going on, and he wants to save everyone on the ship and like escape in this escape pod and still go through with his mission to find proof of his family's being fine, you know? It's not EX Lockhart who is reprinted into EX Lockhart's body. It is Nyver Sharp, who is one of the conservators, who her neural processes has been on ice, been locked away by the Mercators for a really long time. And Tarquin doesn't know this, that like his enemy is hiding in the body of someone who he trusts. And so they end up crash landing on Sixth Cradle to find Sixth Cradle is already basically dead. It's on its way out. There's weird things going on with misprints, so bodies that are printed wrong. They don't have a soul or any neural pathways in them, but like they're literally printed wrong. So think like a walking leg or someone with ears growing out of the top of their head. Like they're wrong. They're misprinted, if you will. Something's going on with the misprints. Something's going on with the twin ship that wasn't attacked with the Amaranth and the Einkorn. The Einkorn was not attacked, but something's going on with that ship as well because they are not available to save the people from the Amaranth who crash landed on Sixth Cradle. It becomes a survival narrative. There's a romance. It is great. Okay, I could not put this down. I was fascinated. It gave me everything that I wanted Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky to be, which I really did not like Children of Time when I read it. This was fantastic. Everybody needs to pick it up and I cannot wait to get to the sequel. Truly, I'm so excited about it. I ended up picking up The Jad Air by Sarah Hashem. This is pitched on the internet as a romantasy, a true enemies to lovers fantasy, romance fantasy, but I don't think that is doing this book enough service because I don't think it can be classified as a romantasy. Why? Because romantasy, whenever we hear that word, the romance fantasy, we expect it to be a very romance heavy plot. We expect there to be steam. We expect there to be a really heavy focus on the relationship between the two main characters, on the main character and the love interest, right? This does not have that. This is a very interesting look at a world that has basically eliminated everyone from this one kingdom, the Jad kingdom, because they were magic users and everyone else was not. Jad, the Jasadi, the people from Jad, are magic users. They can have magic. Some of them, I don't know if all of them, that wasn't clear. But anyways, eradicated the kingdom of Jad. Of course, there's refugees. And of course, our main character is the Jad Air. She is from the Jasadi family, the Jasadi royal family. She's the hidden princess. It's the hidden princess trope. So she has been on the run for about 10 years. She's been hiding in this village that she's in for about 5 so far. And at the beginning of this book, she kind of makes it clear that her magic, whatever it is, has been locked away by these magical cuffs that she's wearing that were put on by her family way back to control her magic. And so at the beginning of this, she ends up actually breaking through, accidentally exposing who she is to the heir of the Najal kingdom. The Najal heir doesn't kill her outright, because that's usually what they do with the Jasadi, right? If they find one, they sentence them to whatever and end up killing them. He does not do that. He instead takes her on as his champion, because in this book, at this moment, he's trying to find someone to be his champion for some sort of event by the end of this book, some sort of like big event kind of a thing. She becomes his champion, and in secret, they are helping one another kind of figure out stuff, but she is forced to help him find these stray or rogue Jasadi kind of gang-like things that are out there. It was very interesting. I keep wanting to call it politically motivated, but is it politically motivated or just like very interesting? I don't have another word to call it but politically motivated and politically intricate book, because we are following this as it's happening, and also just like learning so much about the world and everything like that. I really enjoyed it. And then you don't get a inkling of attraction between these two for the first like 60% of the book. Like the biggest thing that happens is that our Najal Air has this ability where he can sense magic in people just by touching them, and his touch means death for Jasadi. That's essentially what it is. And so when he touches Sylvia, our main character, at first she's able to hide her magic because of the cuffs, but if she's in a heightened emotional state and her magic is roiling under her skin, he can feel her magic. And in doing that, whatever her magic is, it just sends him into a frenzy of like, this man is about to snap her neck. Like, he's trying to not, but he's about to snap her neck. Like, he becomes a straight up monster whenever he touches her. It comes to this, like, they can't touch each other physically. They also really fucking hate each other. Truly. That is the enemies to lovers. They do not like each other. There's not an inkling of attraction for the first 60% of this book. That was so delicious. The tension was so good. Like, the banter and the true hatred, but it's turned near the end into like kind of reluctant partners into actual lovers by the end of it. That's when it's done right. In my so humble opinion, enemies to lovers can only be done properly in a fantasy book, because then there's actually the threat of murder. And you can actually hate people. There's actually like danger behind that. Because in contemporary romance, if it's enemies to lovers, it's based off of a miscommunication, and there's not stakes there for me. And usually when we get enemies to lovers in a romance, or even in fantasy nowadays, like it's enemies barely. It's like, I kind of don't like this person based on miscommunication. This is a true enemies to lovers. I loved it. I loved it. And it has very little spice, if any at all. Like there's a kissing scene near the end, but that's about it. So this is not romantasy to me, which is very interesting. I don't know. Have you guys read this? What's your opinion on it? I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars, and I'm excited to see where this series goes from here, because that ending. Whew. Then I ended the month with 2 middle grades. I reread The Marvelers by Danielle Clayton, and then finally read The Memory Thieves by that same author. These are the first 2 books in the Conjurer series. They are so sweet, so lovely, and the perfect, like, black girl magic, little black girl going to a magic school vibes that you want. It gave me that, I didn't realize how much I was missing this feeling, but it gave me the deliciousness of reading about little kids going to magic school that I got only from Harry Potter when I was growing up. And because I don't support that author and I refuse to even talk about those books on my channel anymore, like I didn't realize how much I was missing that trope of like little kids going to school, especially going to a magic school, especially when it's done so well. These, all right, I do have my problems with these books, but I think they are so perfect for what they are. And for the younger middle grade audience that they're written for, it's like our main character is 12 in The Memory Thieves, so like 11, 12 years old. I think they're fan-fucking-tastic. They are tightly plotted, they are wonderfully woven with mystery and intrigue, and they are very streamlined, because in my head, I was comparing The Marvelers to Amari and the Night Brothers, because I had read them around a similar time, and they became the same in my head because they have very similar premises, because it's a girl going to a magic institution, if you will. But Amari and the Night Brothers has so much going on, and I couldn't detach Amari and the Night Brothers' whack ending with what was the actual ending in The Marvelers, which I think was actually a really weak ending. I think it was way too fast, and it was just not well fleshed out. Like, we were 20 pages from the end, and I was like, what? Like, it was very quick the second time around. Always a lot going on. But I do also take issue with the fact that we don't actually get a lot of just learning with the kids. We do get a little bit of it in The Memory Thieves. We don't get to like sit and rest and see them using their magic and getting better at their magic, because I think that was my main critique with The Marvelers, that our main character, Ella Durand, like doesn't grow in her magic powers throughout the year. Really, we don't get to see her grow. We don't really get to see her learn. It is so focused on this mystery and like what's happening. In The Memory Thieves, again, it's quite like we just don't get to see them grow enough. There are enough like learning scenes, which I did really like. I liked the balance between the marveling magic and the conjurer magic learning for Ella, but I found a lot of the plot elements in The Memory Thieves specifically kind of gratuitous. Like, I feel like, so in The Marvelers, Ella Durand is the first conjurer to be picked up by the Marveling School, which is a different kind of magic. And the conjurers have always been oppressed and looked down upon by the Marveler Society. That was kind of like what the plot of this was. And they're trying to figure out some stuff that's happening with the school. And her best friend keeps knitting these images of this woman they don't really know about. It's kind of, you know, magic, mystery, all that kind of stuff. But in The Memory Thieves, when she goes back the next year for school, she's not even in school for very long before like a pandemic type thing breaks out, which is causing these kids to have nosebleeds and lose their marvels a little bit. And it's like causing strain and havoc, and everyone's blaming it on the conjurer kids who are now going to the school. So they shut the school down to like detox it for months on end, and Ella just ends up being at home, going to her old school for a bit. And it just felt gratuitous. Like, I almost felt like Danielle Clayton just didn't have enough to write about to like carry these kids learning through a whole year at the Marveling Academy. I don't know. It just felt a little weird. It didn't feel like it worked really well. I think this one felt more surface level than this one did. And both of them together, like, we're just not getting enough of the kids. We're not getting enough of the characters. Like, our main character, Ella Duran, is supposed to have a best friend from back home. Her name is Reagan, and that's all we know about her. Like, we get to see her in some scenes in The Memory Thieves. I couldn't tell you anything about her. Like, we're getting a lot of surface level stuff. It's a lot more just action-packed and focused on the mysteries and the and like trying to fit in, and like the social commentary, which I love, don't get me wrong. And I think it works really, really well as middle grades, because I cannot see kids hating these books. Kids are gonna love these. Like if you got a young reader in your life, pick these up for them, because it's just fabulous for that experience, you know? And the way that it talks about social commentary and the inclusion and the exclusion of the Conjuring Society versus the Marveling Society and all that kind of stuff, and the differences in the magic, it's fascinating. And I'm really interested to see, like, as a whole, what this whole series is going to do when it comes to the bad guy in this, and like what all of the social commentary is going to be. Like, I don't know, but I can also see a lot of Harry Potter influences in these books. So if you're looking for something to fill that itch, pick these up. Give them a try. But yeah, I do really enjoy these books, but I also looked on Goodreads, and there's no third book ready on Goodreads, and I'm a little nervous that Danielle Clayton just hasn't been picked up for any more of these. So if anyone knows if there's a third one coming, please let me know, because like the way this ended, like there's so many things that have not been tied up in this story. There's like, this feels like it could be like a 4, 5, 6 long book series, right? Like it could be so long, following Ella Durand as she goes through her years of learning at the Marveling Academy and like getting better at her magic and figuring out more about this bad guy. But like, I don't know where the third book is. Henry Holt, is there a third book? I really want it there to be, because they're just lovely and they're heartwarming and they're sweet and they're such fast reads. But yes, I feel like some of my critiques are coming from me as an older reader, of course, because I'm 27. I'm gonna be 27 this year. I'm 26 years old. These are not written for me. These are written for the 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds out there, you know? So that's just my critiques on them. Anyways, I gave 4 stars to the Marvelers and 3.5 stars to the Memory Thieves. And that's what I ended the month with. So yeah, like literally I read so few things this month, for me, I should say, but I'm really happy with all my reading, and I'm so glad that I found the favorite of the year so far, and a new favorite author, and a new favorite podcast through this. And I'm currently reading Erin M. Evans' other book, the first one of her series, that's long series that she wrote for Wizards of the Coast. I'm reading Brimstone Angels right now on my Kobo. I have so many things that I'm in the middle of. I'm in the middle still of the second Lycanius trilogy book. I have so many things on the go and so many things that I need to read, but I've just not been in the reading mood lately, and that's totally fine. That happens sometimes. We all go through seasons of creativity and seasons of different moods and what we're into and all that kind of stuff. And currently, I'm obsessed with Criminal Minds, and I'm obsessed with Sage's story. So anyways, my friends, please let me know down below in the comments how your April reading was, what your favorite book of the month was that you read. I would really, really love to know. And I'll catch you guys in another video very, very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.